Thomas Merton, a Catholic monk who was very engaged with Buddhism when he died. He had a tragic death. He was in Bangkok at a conference, kind of a cross-cultural, cross-religion conference, and he had a powered, plug-in radio beside the bath, and it fell in. An interesting, odd way to go. There was some talk, as I recall, about it not being a natural thing. The Catholic Church was very unhappy with what he was doing, but there's always theories, conspiracy theories. But at any rate, he left behind some very beautiful writing and ways of being in the world. This is from his essential writings. By being attentive, by learning to listen, or recovering the natural capacity to listen, which cannot be learned any more than breathing, we can find ourselves engulfed in such happiness that it cannot be explained. The happiness of being at one with everything, in that hidden ground of love for which there can be no explanations. By being attentive, by learning to listen, or recovering the natural capacity to listen, which cannot be learned any more than breathing, we can find ourselves engulfed in such happiness that it cannot be explained. The happiness of being at one with everything, in that hidden ground of love for which there can be no explanations. By being attentive, by learning to listen, or by recovering the natural capacity to listen, which cannot be learned any more than breathing, we can find ourselves engulfed in such happiness that it cannot be explained. The happiness of being at one with everything, in that hidden ground of love for which there can be no explanations. By being attentive. Let us be attentive together for a while. Let us attend to the fact of there being a living body right here. Though when we attend, we don't so much find a body as we find life. Life manifesting as sensations. to be attentive, to be mindful, to be curious, to be present with this breath. With these thoughts. Each breath really does have a beginning. It comes out of nowhere. It doesn't exist, and then it's born. It comes into being. It rises to fullness, and then it declines, and then it vanishes. Mindfulness remembers to remember. And we can make a choice, perhaps to expand the field of observation to include not only the coming and going of the breath at the chest and abdomen, but to include a larger picture of a larger frame, a larger realm, including then the hands, the fingers, including the pressure of the body against the chair or the cushion, including the feet and the legs and the pelvis, including the arms and hands, the back, including all the places where clothing touches the body. And we've learned how to not pay attention to those sensations, but there they are as soon as you look, as soon as one senses them. And with the entirety of the body, including the breath coming and going, as our point of stability, our anchor in the present moment, the field of our observation includes thoughts, memories, plans, obsessions, being attentive, being awake, includes embracing, knowing, receiving the 5 hindrances when they come on stage. Qualities of mind, when the mind is grasping, craving, desiring, or its opposite, rejecting, aversion, disliking. Or restless, agitated mind. The mind which jumps from one thing to another, or repeats something over and over again. Or the mind of sleepy dullness. And foundational to our entire practice, we can remind ourselves of the refuges in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. I take refuge in being awake, in being attentive, in being attention itself. I take refuge in the teachings and what they point to, especially what they point to. This capacity of being here now. Sometimes there's sleepy dullness. A mind just doesn't have the focusing power, the staying power. And then we notice how there's waking up from that. We can be gone for minutes or hours even. And then something very mysterious happens. Knowing, mindfulness, somehow cuts through it all. And doubt. In the natural ecology of mind, doubt is present. It can't hold a candle to mindfulness. So we cultivate this remarkable capacity to be awake, to use the body as home base, to become fully alive right now. observing the arising and passing away of each experience, of each perception. Inhabiting the only place that exists, which is right here and right now. As we attend, some things become clearer and clearer. The breath comes out of nowhere. In memory, there's a previous breath and an after breath. But in experience, there's just this one. And even it is not a thing. Notice how the beginning of the breath is completely gone, way before the middle. And then there's the change of directions, and then there's the breath leaving. And so we rest in now. And in this what would we call it? This presence of mind, this presence of heart, this capacity of attending. There's room for everything. In fact, everything is here. And we can cultivate this love with our presence, with intention. I aspire to love and accept this that I experience as myself, moment after moment. And when I'm hurting, suffering, and the world is prone to creating the conditions that result in us suffering, everything changes. When I discover suffering in myself, it is my intention to hold myself in sweet, gentle, patient, kind compassion. And please let us, in this moment, call to the altar of our hearts our teachers and mentors, all those who have, in this lifetime, held us aloft and said, "Go this way. Learn this math. Practice this craft. Be careful how you speak to yourself and to others. Think of them. There's been a lot in all of our lifetimes. We wouldn't be here if we hadn't had fine teachers. People who shared their partial knowledge of the way. I call to the altar of our hearts Ruth Dennison, Jack Cornfield, Matt Flickstein. Anita Witt. And so we share in the wisdom and compassion of these elders, these others, apparent others. And let's now wish that all beings might share in the merits of our practice. Gandhi said something like, when you're contemplating doing an action, ask yourself how it will affect the poorest and most vulnerable person on earth. Let us share the merits of our practice and dedicate our lives to the welfare of all beings. And please let us bring awareness into the body where it touches the chair, the floor. Notice the life, the aliveness in the hands, in the feet, in the chest and neck and throat, in the lips, the nose and the cheeks and the forehead and the eyes. And let's now notice what it takes to open the eyes. And when we slow down, we can take some real delight and curiosity in how does this actually happen, this opening of eyes. And then it's opening to seeing. And we can notice the fact of seeing. We can be mindful of seeing. And then we can be mindful of recognizing friends on the journey. Hungry dogs at the door. Seeing. Thank you, dear friends, for coming to sit together this morning. I find that this that I take to be I is still tired, but much clearer. By being attentive, by learning to listen, or recovering the natural capacity to listen, to know, which cannot be learned any more than breathing, we can find ourselves engulfed in such happiness that it cannot be explained. The happiness of being at one with everything, in that hidden ground of love, for which there can be no explanation. I spent an hour or so at the Willamette National Cemetery yesterday, being the officiant at a gathering where several generations were saying goodbye to mom and grandmom and great-grandma. As I drove into the cemetery, the National Cemetery is, there's no monuments except plaques in the ground. They're all sort of, it's very well maintained. But I was touched by the sheer numbers of those stones in the ground, row upon row upon row, come up over the hill, and then there's another huge field of them. Quite remarkable. Quite heart-opening. The whole thing was quite beautiful, very beautiful. Oh, The first sun is coming through, and it has that reddish tone that means smoke. It's coming through smoke somewhere out there. Well, I'm really grateful for your presence this morning. And I have an announcement or two. One I'm going to bring to the top of the list, which is I'm looking for 4 volunteers who would be willing to come with crowbars and tools to take down a couple of walls at the center. We can save about 20. Well, we're committed now, $2,500 to $3,000 by simply demoing a couple of walls. And I need some help with that. I discovered I really can't do it myself with my hip and back like they are at this point. So if you're willing and interested, you don't have to be a master carpenter. This is demolition. Please email me, robert@robertbeatty.com. And Pamela Lear, this is part of the seeking help so as not to be so overwhelmed. Thank you for your encouragement. Just because I can do it myself doesn't mean that I should. That's part of my mantra. And I don't know that I could do it myself at this point. So other than that, I think registration for Candles Saturday is closed now. And the picnic, we will continue as we can. More will be revealed. I think we should just have Ron DeSantis come and straighten the state out so we could then be free of the COVID virus because of not being such wimps. Jeez. So, what's up with you? Anything you'd like to share? I think I have sound. Jim, will you give me a word just so I know?
Okay, testing. 1, 2, 3.
I don't get it. You turn this
You don't
on.
get it.
How about now?
How about now? Can you hear me? I'm speaking. You don't seem
Why
to
don't
be
you
hearing.
folks proceed, Jim, if you will be in the host position, and I will just listen in and see if I can get this stupid thing to work.
Okay.
How weird.
It's really strange. There's gremlins in the system that turn off the audio. after that quote from Thomas Merton, it's interesting to just listen. I went out last night when I was hoping it had cooled down, but it hadn't really. But I went out in the dark and took a walk 2 or 3 blocks, and the amazing phenomenon of crickets in August has returned to my neighborhood. It's the first night that I've noticed them, but it's great. You walk down and you start hearing sounds, and it gets louder and louder and louder, and it comes from a certain bush. And then you pass the bush, and it gets lower and lower and lower, and then you approach another spot where there's busy crickets. And that's how I spent the last 10 minutes of my day last night. listening, paying attention.
Thank you, Jim. I have sound again.
Where did it come from? It came out of the silence.
Yeah. You know, you're speaking of that reminds me when Jennifer and I were in Vietnam on our honeymoon. There was a huge, wonderful rainstorm. And I forget how quickly it happened, but it might have been the same night. The roar of the insects was almost deafening. The people that ran the little, very rustic place we were staying told us that people don't come there in the rainy season because they can't stand the noise. It's truly cacophonous. It's just wild. And I thought many times in Vietnam, of course, about our war with them, the America war. Which, interestingly, in Vietnam, that's not the war they're concerned about. It's the war with China that they always worry about, because it's been so prolonged. But anyway, I thought of being a teenager there in the middle of the war, being completely unable to hear anything around us because of the roar of the insects. Scary. But it was so loud. I mean, there's no way to describe the loudness that'll make sense to anybody who hasn't experienced it. It was just massive.
Hey, Robert, it's Neil.
Hello, Neil.
Hey. Um, I heard what you said at the beginning about the ceremony that you were at the officiant at, and I had a friend of mine. He's not a close friend. He passed away yesterday unexpectedly, and I've had a few friendships that are kind of possibly coming to an end. They're important friendships, and it's all sort of happening at the same time. And there's a baseline of stress that I deal with my job, but this all seemed to be happening at once and began to feel overwhelming. And I guess during the sit, I heard myself saying, I'm overwhelmed. This is overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I guess from a mindfulness perspective, what came to mind was it was as if my mind it had to recreate the situations. But at the same time, as I'm just sitting here, I can feel the kind of the sort of stress there. And so I hear a lot in your talks about, and your sits more about how the mind recreates the past and the future. There's this constant, it's a creative process, really, it seems.
Right.
A recreation or a future tripping in a way. And I don't know. I wanted to check in how I felt because it's bothering me. And I don't know if you have any. That's it.
So you've had the death of a friend and the possible ending of 2 relationships.
3.
Is that 3? So you're experiencing a lot of loss. The world is demonstrating to you in 3D Technicolor surround sound that things that you thought were going to be permanent are not. True?
True.
And that's very stressful. That requires that kind of loss requires a tremendous amount of acceptance and letting go, and there's grief involved. So there would probably very easily be a sense of overwhelm because several pieces of your world that you rely on have proved to be unstable. And so at such a time, I would expect my mind would have some tumult. It would be trying to make sense of it and get control of it and maybe make sense of why these relationships are ending and maybe be blaming myself or the other person, or it could do all these things. And I think you inferred this, and in the meditation, it would sometimes become obvious that all the stress of that is being created by the mind, and it's creating a future and a past and so on, and that it's possible to actually be at peace inwardly while all of that is happening. Is that making any sense?
It makes sense.
Hard though.
It is hard. I think the desire for the peace is pretty. I mean, I would love to have that, and I noticed a little glimpse of that briefly in my sit today, where it kind of got into the present moment. But and maybe that's aversion. I don't want to deal with what's coming up, but.
Well, there's no doubt there would be aversion, disliking, of course, naturally. But then, quote, all you have to do is accept the aversion for what it is, which is more mind striking against, I don't like this, I want it to be different. But that which knows is deeper than that. Awareness is deeper than that. It's hard to accept how painful life is often. That's why the advertising always has the happier than is reasonable people in them. You know, it's got that hi and then there's the losses, the unpredictability,
the temporariness of it all.
Absolutely.
And I think for me, it makes it hard to trust. You know, it creates a trust deficit, or maybe I'm putting my eggs in the wrong baskets. You know, I need to, I don't know, or I just have to maybe accept the transitoriness of friendships more.
Maybe all of the above. When you have several happening at one time, it gets really hard. Several losses concurrently. That's why it's helpful to have community, to have Sangha, to be able to share one's loss. And what we were doing at that memorial service yesterday, and what I was intentionally doing in my brief remarks, was it encouraging people to not be stoic and strong and handle this yourself, but to band together to one of the women gave everyone a great gift. She felt very embarrassed about it, but she had written a eulogy for her grandma. Very special relationship. And the woman was in her late 40s, maybe. I don't know, but you know what. And she wound up sobbing at a couple of places during her reading, for which I thanked her when she was finished. I said, what beautiful words to offer to your grandma. And thank you for giving us all the gift of your emotions, because she was so embarrassed, ashamed of crying. And I said, you've given everyone here the gift of some freedom to actually have emotions. Because our culture is we're completely weird around grief. We just don't make any room for it. Do you have other friends you can lean on, Neil?
I do.
Fantastic. Do
I shall.
it. It's a sign of a strong person who can open to their grief and loss and confusion and then talk to a friend.
I appreciate your wisdom. And I'll make sure to bother everyone a lot.
Good. You know, I have 2 or 3 friends, guys, that I've known for a long time. And it's legit in our friendships, and I do this with some regularity, saying, I need to just lean for a little while. Can you listen? You know, I'm struggling with this. So, such riches to have that.
Hi, Robert. I had an aha this morning, which I'll try to be concise, but it's on this theme. You were, in the meditation, you were guiding us through the breath and noting that the beginning of the breath was disappearing before ever reached the middle of the breath. And I was very much with you in that. And at the same time, watching how my mind went right to mourning the loss of the beginning of the breath, and how much of my conditioning is geared to mourning what is being left behind. My whole conditioning orientation is looking backwards, and has been for most of my life, this deep homesickness, wanting to go back to something that really I never had. And as I was sitting there with that, well,
I know.
you know,
I resemble that remark.
I understand, and I'm in the personal work that I'm doing. I'm very much working very specifically on how I can embrace that part of me, because I've been fighting it for so long, and I can't fight it. I need to accept it. I need to own it, love it. But I gotta, because it's resisting. It's this trickster that is inside me that says, no, I will defeat you at every step. But the aha was seeing how much my focus was to the past. And I just had this thought, well, there is a new self that is being born in each moment. My focus in your meditation was, oh, I'm losing that, or it's not a thought, it was a feeling, And I said, what if I sit and just revel in the new self that is being born in this moment? Not denying the past, accepting it, but what I've been denying is this new moment that's being born as the breath rises. And as I was sitting there feeling this kind of spacious, compassionate place, again, the thought just popped into my brain. I wonder if this is what self-forgiveness feels like. You know, if I'm not tied up in the shame from the past, if I'm saying, okay, there is whatever that was. Now is this moment. And let's just be with this new self and each successive new self. That was a moment. And thank you. It was your guidance led me there.
That's very beautiful, David. Very articulately put. And I wonder if it would be more skillful to not think of a new self in every moment, but that this is the experience of this moment. Because we don't have to build another self. There's plenty of self around.
There's a bigger story, which is all of that conditioning existed within a larger shell.
Yeah.
And that home was there. If I can just allow myself to strengthen my awareness of that and find refuge in that, i.e. Buddha, i.e. whatever. Mm-hmm. And in attending to this moment, it's like I'm reinforcing that. So yeah, same thing, different words, I think.
Thank you for sharing that beautiful experience.
Thank you.
The present moment. Well, anybody else have anything you'd like to share? Again, thank you very much for coming this morning. Such a nice ritual. I really like my commute. Boy, the sun really is yellow. Yellow, smoky, red. Phew. Well, let's sing our way out of here. Please unmute if you wish. May all beings share in the merits of our practice. Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam. Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam. Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Have a fine, mindful day, dear friends. Happy journeys.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you on the